television stations, and by a grant from the Chubb Group of insurance companies.
Thank you. If anything is as perennially youthful as the figure of Peter Pan, it's the play that James Barrie wrote about him, which seems to come back off and on, year after year, and it's always got all of its freshness intact. And the latest revival is the musical version on Broadway, and it stars my guest tonight, Sandy Duncan. Peter Pan makes a nice change for Sandy. She recently aged, as you probably saw, from 20 to 70 within just a very few episodes of Roots. In fact, Sandy seems to be making a lot of changes these days, and she's done a Las Vegas nightclub act, which her old cute image may never recover from, I'm told. I'd like to hear about that. It's clear from her work in Peter Pan that she is someone who tends to be taken more seriously as an actress, and I thought it'd be interesting to talk to her, hear what else is going on with her. She is always lively and engaging company, and here she is right now, Sandy Duncan. There you are. You're on now. Great walk. Love your walk. Well, say, you look swell, and here I appear to be dressed for Henry Kissinger or something. I don't know who I thought was coming out here. I think things like that you should level with the folks at home. I happen, whenever you're seeing this, and it may be very confusing to have just taped a program with Mr. Kissinger, but of course you didn't just see it, you may not have seen it, or you're about to see it, or I may not even be here now. That's the other interesting thing. Sandy Duncan, is it? Yes. I got into very bad trouble with you one time, and it tells us something about television. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes, he ordered me off his show, which is about the last time I saw you, actually. Yes.
There's kind of a coincidence there.
Yeah.
I ordered you to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was not anything that made all the papers, but...
Or any.
It was one of those things where I was told that, as you often are when you host this sort of thing, she has to leave at a certain point, and they held up a sign, she leaves now. So I said, leave now, having just seen the sign, just to amuse myself and you. It didn't amuse about 4,000 letter writers, however, some of which are still coming in, saying, we know what a swine you are, Mr. Cavett, now. Anyone who treats Sandy that way. I wonder if that has something to do with your image of being perhaps waif-like, likable, cute, if you pardon the expression.
No, I pardon it.
Yeah.
I have to live with it. You know, I think it has a lot to do with it because people either like the image very much or they don't. Mm-hmm. And the trap and the neuroses that you can get into is either playing into it or doing things to dispel it. So you're not interacting naturally any way you go about it.
You're either going too far one way or too far the other.
So it's wearing like a sailor or being Miss Muppet, you know, so you have to be careful not to do. I think that happens to a lot of people in California, particularly television people, because it is so strong and because you just get locked into something without even being aware of it. Yeah.
When you set out, when you started doing TV, did you consciously have discussions with managerial types about image and that sort of thing?
Not at all. What happened was I got a part, and I got a couple of reviews for the role that said I was appallingly convincing, which sort of was my idea of what acting was about. And the problem with it was I continued to get the same role, which again is, I think, indicative of television work. They don't take chances. They don't have the time or the money, and I understand that, having produced my own nightclub act. You don't want to be bothered. Can you do that? Fine, do it. They don't want to experiment a lot. So I ended up getting a lot of the same roles over and over and over, and apparently convinced people that that's, in fact, what I was. I'm now having a little trouble with Peter Pan. People are starting to relate to me like a guy. Kids that come back and stuff, they're furious with me that I'm not a boy when they come backstage, little kids.
Yeah, you know, all of us realize, well, you always tend to think of that character as female because, you know, it's famously done by Maud Adams.
Exactly.
And
it's
Mary
been done,
Martin,
I think, with a femininity in the past, too.
Yeah.
Which I'm not doing.
And when they come back, they're stunned that you're
There was a
not...
little girl last night, 3 years old. Her mother kept saying, "It is Peter Pan." She says, "Peter Pan is a boy." So her mother finally gave me a program to sign. I signed it. She threw it. She said, "I don't want it." She was so mad at me.
That was the child or the mother?
Child.
The child. Oh, yeah, okay.
Somebody's
She
mother
wouldn't accept you
would
as
not.
a...
That happens a lot to me. And I'll come out and I can hear mothers trying to convince their children that I am in fact the same person they just saw, and they keep going, you'll see them, the little, no. So one little boy the other day even really tried to make it all come together for himself. He was going down the street, he said, "Goodbye, Mrs. Peter Pan." I mean, he knew that, you know, it wasn't quite right for Peter Pan, but he knew there was a connection because I was enough similar.
When they see your full anatomy backstage, that's the giveaway.
I suppose.
The costume conceals it, and they take you as a male.
That's right.
Yeah. I wonder if that's traumatizing for them at all. If they feel cheated, maybe they
do. And I hesitate to come out sometimes with the little, you know, because it is like Santa Claus and stuff. And also, a lot of these children have never been, I don't know how many of your children, have never been to a theater.
Yeah.
So Diana Ross's children, even one of them who's very, you know, very experienced, you would think, she said, "I thought it was a movie at first." Because they see the proscenium, and it's all kind of, and the flying and stuff, and they don't have enough relationship to theater to discern the difference.
Well, as a kid, I thought that the actors were behind the movie screen anyway, and that if you went back there, you could see them. And I often wondered if you'd see them leaving afterwards, and did they have to come back and do it again later and so on. But they also, because of the movie and TV situation, a lot of the kids, you'll hear them crying at the end of the show saying, "I want to see it again." Like you can put it on right away again. Stay for the next one.
That's right. They
For
start
the
crying.
cartoon. Yeah. We have a piece of tape that was, it's an outtake from something they were filming for promotion of the show or something. Yeah.
Commercial.
And so let's take a look at that, because I want to ask you about I have had fantasies all my life. I think most people have of being able to fly. There's the classic flying dream, of course. It's a little dark because they were not shooting this for...
All right, this is just, I see.
Tell us what...
It's raining, first of all, and we're across the Brooklyn Bridge. It's for the I Love New York series commercials. And I guess this is an outtake or something. It was pouring rain. That was not the one they took.
You seem to...
Having a little trouble on my wires. It's a lot of crash landings.
Did they...
Okay, good. Here we go. Road sound, please. No flashes.
Had they warned you that this might be a little dangerous on the outdoors in unfamiliar territory?
No, they don't warn you about it. They just say, "That must look great in a commercial."
And that's really the city back there.
Yeah, it's really the city. And in close, it'll look like I'm above the skyline, I guess. I haven't seen it. But see, it'll be like suspended above all of New York. The fun flying in the show is the 35 miles an hour that we do. Zooming around.
Do you, in fact, reach speeds of 35 miles an hour?
Absolutely. When we do the back and forth from proscenium edge to proscenium edge.
How would they time that?
Maybe they wear one of those little gizmos. I don't know.
I guess they can.
But the fellow who flies me says you hit like 35 miles an hour.
Now, is it a sensation of flying, or is it a sensation of being rudely jerked up into the air in a harness with wires on it?
For me, it's a sensation of flying. I think because I'm a dancer, I do a lot of acrobatics in the air that haven't been done here. But I really have a sensation of flying, and I must continually remind myself that I do not, in fact, fly in the show, because there are times when, if I'm not careful, I will jump, say, off a ship before I'm hooked, and this is not good. So hurt yourself.
It cost them a talent that way.
Also, I go in the audience now, too, which has never been done. They fly me at the end of the show right out up to the balcony and back.
Oh,
which I would love to see. So if you would go hook yourself
I want to try that.
Yeah, it's fun. It really is. The fantasy is understandable because it's an incredible sensation.
Have you ever had the classic flying dream? It seems like almost everybody has had the dream that they can fly. I mean,
and then you wake up and you've...
But no, that's the myoclonic jerk.
Oh.
Did you know that?
But what does it mean? I'd like to know about it because I have it a lot. Suddenly you're...
That's, yes, I had a man on one time who explained that. My whole education comes from other television shows I've been. A man who'd written, Dr. Siegel, who'd written a book on insomnia, said, "Oh, that's the myoclonic jerk," as I just did to you. I thought he was referring to me for a moment.
That's what
I thought it was a highbrow insult.
Yes.
And I said, "I have a care," or something. But Dr. Siegel said that the myoclonic jerk had something to do, now I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was close enough to this, that whether it's the lactic acid or something in the muscles, they reach just a certain point of relaxation, and at that certain point there's a reflex. And you feel it as that grabbing the bed and falling off, or falling off the world, or people describe it in various ways. But it's quite common, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with you, or that you're obsessed with flying, or that you have a terribly distorted sexual obsession of some sort, which Freud related somehow with flying. I don't remember how. So it's always good to tell people that before you ask them to admit that they have a flying dream or not. Yeah. But the dream where you think, why do I always forget that I can fly? In which you find yourself up over a building or something and think, why don't I do this more often? Yes, this time it isn't a dream. I really am flying. Don't you get that?
Yeah, I do. I have, yeah.
Yeah.
What is curious, we're probably all, so I don't know if it's in our lifetime, we'll be able to fly. That's been, you know, everybody wants the self little. Peter Pan really won't have the impact, will it? That's going to be one revival they won't necessarily unless...
That's right. I wondered if even today, kids have seen so much television, so much magic, so much special effects, and so on, that they're jaded. Do they?
No.
That it still has the impact.
Yes, enormous impact. I'm amazed at, because they even see The Wire, you know, because there's no, and they're used to television where you superimpose and you don't see anything. They do all that blue, what's it stuff, the sodium thing, chroma key and all that. But they see The Wire, they don't care. They're still infected by I think the joy of what's happening, and also just the theatricality of it right before their own eyes, you know, being alive. And in fact, one little girl said, I saw how you flew. She said, I saw The Wire. I went, oh, I thought, well, you're a little jaded cynic. She said, is Tinkerbell sleeping? So, I mean, she got all of the values, you know.
Yeah. What about Captain Hook? Does he scare them? Does he try to...
This Captain Hook does.
The actor who's playing them is Christopher Hewitt.
And he says hello to you. He likes you a lot.
I know him, yeah. And I'm sure he enjoys
a lot. Scaring kids.
That performance.
Yes, he does. In fact, we had a particularly noisy group at a matinee yesterday, and he was just, I mean, scaring them to death.
How does he do it?
Looks right at them and just glares and screams at them. Talking about traumatizing children. But he does it with, I think, great humor, because most of the kids are not, you know, really afraid of him.
Does he meet them afterwards in costume?
Yes.
Are they scared of that?
Some are, some aren't. You know, it's like, you know, children being, some of the grown-ups are, you know.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to go to the theater with your childish innocence and believe... I was never taken as a very small kid to the theater, but...
You were not?
No, but my wife remembers being taken to the ballet, I think maybe the Russian company or something, as a very small child, seeing the Snow Queen and all. And it was just truly storybooks come to life. Of course, the ballet still seems that way at times. Yeah.
A lot of the grown-ups, too, that I think they're delighted to have kind of a fantasy and escape, because fantasy was very much a part, I think, of our lives, the age that we are, you know, the 30 to 40. And,
is that what we are?
Yes, 30 to 40. But it was, and a lot of the children today, I think, have been so deprived of fantasy. I think that's one of the values of this show to people. And for the adults who come, they sort of relive an innocent past that they have, and they invariably will say, my children loved the show, but I think I enjoyed it more than they did.
Yeah.
So I think we all need that.
You told me something backstage that the, tell me if you don't want me to blurt this out, that the garment that you wear, the hoist, what do you call it? The brace, the harness, is painful and possibly injurious.
Yeah. Well,
how do you decide what your values are at a time like that?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, you suddenly go, well, now I should get out of the show, and, you know, I have a liver problem, and this apparently is aggravating and keeping, because the liver regenerates itself if given time, and so I'm going to have have this harness reconstructed, because you know, like boxers will get hit in the organs and they get
the same
kind of thing. Yeah. Well, this harness is constantly jamming up under my rib cage, because I dance a lot in the harness on the ground. That's the only time it hurts. In the air, it doesn't hurt at all, because the weight's taken off it.
You're getting that fixed, though.
Yes, a lot of foam and moleskin.
Good.
Yeah.
Sandy, when you were a kid, did you grow up in the Bible Belt?
Yes, I did. Yeah, but we didn't go to church. And for that area, it was really heresy. I had great problems with that, because we didn't do a lot of things. I remember asking my mother at one point in time, why can't we ever be on the popular side? you know, and I turned out, maybe that has a lot to do with the image that happened to me. I turned out to be this goody two-shoes because I was determined to make my family of nonconformists fit. And I never fit in, but I affected behavior to make myself fit. I was never a cheerleader. You would think I would be, right?
Yes.
Never. We didn't go to church in the Bible Belt, which you had to do, so my mother took us to the Unitarian Church. No, Mother, we want to go to the Baptist Church, right? Or the Methodist, some normal church. She took us to the Unitarian Church twice, and let's see, what else did we do that was, she didn't go to PTA. I remember saying, Mother, please go to the PTA. All the mothers go to the PTA. So she took me with her, and she said, fine, you sit here. We went once, and I said, Mom, you don't have to go anymore. It was real boring to me.
And they were rebellious, though, in many ways, your parents were?
Without meaning to. They were just nonconformists, and it turns out I am, too. But I didn't realize that about myself. And in an effort to try and make my family work in that area, I did double time.
And how would you feel the pain of the nonconformism? What would the other kids do and say?
I think just always feeling slightly on the edge of things. Now, if you talk to people, maybe everyone feels that way. I know I always felt like there were cliques of people and they were in a group talking about something and I wasn't really part of it. Even if I were invited to the parties, I was not really part of the inner circle of people. And I continue to feel that way as an adult. I don't know if that's common, but in California with the movie stars and the TV stars, I'd go to the parties, but I never felt, you know.
As an insider.
That's right, yeah. That's why I feel good in New York, I think, because there is no inside here, you know. It's just a polyglot of individuals, and I like that.
Yeah, you've left California and the life you had there.
Yeah, I lived in New York 6 years prior to living in California, and I much prefer living here, much.
When I talked to you, how many years ago on that show that I jokingly ordered you off of and got rapped for, you were just in the post-operative phase, more or less, of eye surgery, which left you with one eye, one effective eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there ever a point during that when you were so close to hitting bottom that it came at a very bad time in your career that you thought, not worth it, I'm getting out of this business? Did you consider an alternative?
Never did, because I think that was a defense mechanism I needed to get through it. I kind of treated it like a common cold, to be honest with you, at that point in time. It was to get me through. I had great humor and positive cheeriness about it. But it was...
Were you forcing that?
Yes. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But it worked, because it really did get me through a difficult period of time. And looking back on it, I guess I find in the recent years it's become a little more realistic and depressing to me than it was then. Not depressing, but I have a realization of it was a life-threatening thing that happened to me. I just didn't allow that to affect me then.
But later the impact came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of things came out later, as it does when you grow up, I think.
What do you do? How do you decide at a time like that which route you're going to take? That seems to be the hard part. I mean, you could either say,
oh, God, and just despair.
Yeah.
It was truly involuntary, I think. I don't think I made a conscious choice. It was more of that fitting in stuff, more of that kind of, I'm not going to be, you know, the perfect thing to do would be to be positive and brave and cheerful. So I'm going to be positive and brave and cheerful. And it worked. Sometimes you buy your own act.
The mask became the reality.
Exactly.
Not to put too fine a point on it.
Well, but
to sound a bit professorial. Then.
It's true.
When did you turn pro?
12 years old. I got my first check, and I worked every summer from that time on.
What did you do?
You do mean show business, yeah.
Yes. Well, we are in rather a seedy neighborhood.
Yes, we are. Yeah, when I was 12, and I moved to New York when I was 18, and I never had an outside job, which is apparently, listening to people when they come on shows talk about their life and their story, unusual, because you have to work at other things. I worked as a hat check girl for one day and was fired. So I'm really not suited for much else. It's lucky this is working out.
You often think of that what would people in theater do if there weren't the theater? Yeah. I just realized that our friend who plays Captain Hook lives around the corner, and I just said, we're in a rather seedy neighborhood, so we'll probably be hearing from him. Whenever you're on with me, I do something to offend a large segment of the audience. I can ask you, I forgot what it was.
Talking about not being able to do anything?
Terrible feeling, yes.
Yes.
How about
I can't.
that?
Can't do a thing. I do worry, you know, you just think, well, if all else fails, I'll just get a job as a, I'll waitress. And I watch what they do. I think, God, I couldn't anymore do that. I mean, I have to balance things. I drop everything. I'm kind of clumsy. I mean, I couldn't add I couldn't do it. Everything takes a certain amount of training and experience.
Sure.
You know, everything. My dad runs a gas station. And,
Does now?
Yes, still does.
Yeah.
And loves it. There's not much else I can do, Dick.
What about the, do you ever get to the point where you want to put a mattress over your
Bathtub.
head and get into the bathtub?
I used to do that
Should
in
we
Texas.
explain this? This is not a reference to a party we went to or anything like that.
It's a tornado season in Texas. You do that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I hope that's what it is.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in bathtubs with a mattress over my head.
Now, what was supposed to be effective about that? I mean, the whole bathroom could blow away, and you... This was in Hendersonville.
Well, close to. It was a little town even smaller called Overton. And I have said this in an interview about spending a lot of time in a bathtub with a man. And my mother says that I'm, in fact, making that up. You know how you'll invent things that you remember as a child or think that you did, and you're sure that you did it, but your mother goes, no, you never did that.
But then she might be denying something she finds embarrassing, too.
This is true, Mother.
Yeah.
No.
Weren't you one of those kids who had an alter ego?
Yes, I did. I did.
I've never run across that. I know, I've read about that. And sometimes the person is someone the kid can actually pass a lie detector test that they knew or
it was very
spoke
real
with
to
or
them.
something. Tell me about that. I'm intrigued.
They call them imaginary playmates, but I think as you get older and you maybe go into analysis, they end up calling them alter egos. It was a little girl named Ann Pfuffenpfeffer, and she was...
Where did her name come from?
I made it up, or else she introduced herself. I don't know.
And what does this mean to you? Why did you make up this name?
You're not going to do this to me, are you? No.
I'm not charging you for this. This is going
to be free.
Yes, it'll all
I know. It's when I lived in the woods, down in New London, Texas, in the oil field area. That's where my roots are. My grandfather came there when the boom, and they lived in 10 houses and tents and everything else. And I was by myself a lot, so I didn't have children. I invented this child. And we wandered in the woods together and played, and I'd say, I want a cookie, and give one to Ann. They'd always have to feed. They thought they had a real nut on their hands. You know, give her water, too. And she'd drink the water. She had red hair and freckles and was real mean and kind of, you know, a grappler. And I was, you know, very sweet.
Now, had you consciously designed her? Did you say, I'll have her have red hair and freckles?
She just
Or did
was.
you just, suddenly one day she was there and she hadn't been there the day before?
She was just always there from the time I remember. And I killed her. I do remember the kill. But that's ordinary, I hear, for imaginary playmates. They kill them off violently, children do, so that they can't come back and interfere with their life and disrupt them. See, society, when I started school, all the things that she did, the behavior patterns she had, didn't fit in too well. So I, out of necessity, had to kill her. And I remember standing at the kitchen sink at my grandmother's, and my mom said, what happened to Ann? We haven't, you know, heard about her in a few days. And I said, she's dead. I distinctly remember it, too. I was, you know, she's dead.
Now,
and
was that something you decided to do at that moment, or had you...
Yes, it hadn't occurred to me where she'd gone, I think, because I had no answer for her. And I remember, I said a car hit her up by Perry's grocery store.
That is so interesting.
And that was the end of Ann.
Well, what does psychiatry say about the child who
does
comes up with this sort of thing?
It says basically that there was a lot of behavior modification that went on once I started school, which is now coming back out on me, it turns out. Ann Pfuffenpfeffer is not dead. She's in there. Yeah, and give her some water, too.
Yes, we only had one glass here, I noticed. If the water starts to go down in that glass, I'm going to be very, very nervous. But it wasn't a disturbing thing. It wasn't...
For me?
Yeah, it wasn't... You didn't
No,
ever
I just didn't eat her
threaten
anymore, and the things that she did were not acceptable in school. Her manners were not, you know, so I just... But she's still there. You know, it's just a part of me, obviously, that I didn't...
Did it seem odd to you that adults couldn't see her?
I just thought they weren't too bright, you know?
Yeah.
Kids do. I mean, they think, you know, older people just don't. And in fact, it's kind of true. You know, I mean, you talk to kids. I've talked to a lot of children. That's been one of the joys, I think, of doing this show. They see a lot and understand a lot of things that we block or somehow have lost sensitivity to. And they'll see auras. Like I knew a little girl once, she would say, so-and-so's red. I didn't know what she was talking about, but it was a color that was like animals apparently can detect. And I think we cut off a lot of our sensations as we grow older. You know,
What's your education? Did you go through school down in?
Yeah, and I went 1 year to college. And we were talking about, it's funny, I'm interviewing next week to get into a co-op here in New York, which is very difficult. It's almost like auditioning or rushing for a sorority, which I did when I was in college. And I went one day to the sorority rushes, and they said dress in burlap and jump around like a frog. And I thought, no, it's another circle I can't be in. So the co-op is next week. I hope I don't freak and do myself out of an apartment.
They won't ask you to dress in burlap or anything.
Well, you don't know. I have to wear a dress.
That's right, and you have to appear very respectable.
That's right, and
so
because
on.
show business people are a little dodgy.
Yeah. I didn't realize that still went on, but
Yes.
in this city, you're a member of a minority.
Yeah.
If you're in show business, you have to put down a higher deposit on a
That's
telephone.
right.
Is that,
That's
I think
right.
that's still true,
And you have
isn't
to,
it?
yes.
And the only thing that treats you as an equal is Con Edison, because they'll be just as shabby to
Just
you
as shabby.
as they are to
Be the
everybody
next
else.
person.
Yeah, and they'll cut your electricity off and so on. And yeah. Tell me something that bothers me. It's a sensitive question, I know, and it's the theater. But I saw a show that I won't name recently, and it irritated the hell out of me that all through the show, it sounded like the show is coming from somewhere else in the theater.
The miking.
Yes. There was no way that the sounds, they were actually coming from the stage, of course, but it was so electronically gimmicked.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is being done around the country or not. We take a show on tour.
It
But I
is.
thought I was listening to a record the whole time.
It is, and I don't know how to explain it because there have been theaters here for years, and people did not, in fact, use these wireless microphones.
Or any microphones.
Or any
in some
microphones.
cases. Yeah.
But now it is absolutely the rule. I mean, I fought it, and they said, no, you have to. I said, but people didn't. Now, I don't know if it has to do with audiences are going deaf because of disco music, and they can't hear as well, or that we don't project as well because we like to do, you know, more nuances with
Subtle
our acting
things.
as opposed to the oratory style.
Yeah.
But there have been a lot of articles about that, and it's just with us.
I wonder what the effect is on the performer, because it must sound to them like they're coming from a jukebox and not...
It does. The best training I think I had for this show was doing the nightclub, because I'd never used a microphone in my life until then. And using the microphone, I got accustomed to hearing my voice outside myself, which is what, in fact, I'm doing now. It's an adjustment.
Sandy, we have run out of time.
Well, I hardly believe
I don't
it's
know what
true.
to do.
Well,
Let's fly off. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Sandy Duncan. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Funding for the Dick Cavett Show has been provided by this station and other public television stations, and by a grant from the Chubb Group of Insurance Companies.